I was talking with a judge the other day, and he said that law and justice are not the same thing. He's right. Sometimes when the law is correctly applied, innocent people go to jail, and other times the guilty go free. That got me thinking, what is justice? One good definition that I stumbled across is that justice is giving to others what they're due. So justice is served when innocent people go free and the guilty are punished appropriately. Seems right. So that got me thinking about another question, between constitutionality and justice, which is more fundamental when creating law. Some might say constitutionality, but I think it's justice. After all, why have a law, even if it's constitutional, if it's unjust? We've done that before. In 1896, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the doctrine of separate but equal was constitutional. And for nearly 60 years, people of color had to use separate public facilities and attend segregated schools because of a law that the court said was constitutional. But during that time, even though separate but equal was the law of the land, it was not just. So when it comes to creating law, the goal is to craft legislation that is both constitutional and just. Makes sense, doesn't it? So what should we do when the law of the land is unjust? We have three options: reform the law, practice civil disobedience, or revolt. It makes sense to start with the least radical approach of reforming the law, but when that doesn't work, civil disobedience is in order. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote about that, saying, "One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Dr. King knew that not all laws are created equal. Some are just, others are unjust and unworthy of society. This is what the proponents for the inclusion of same-sex marriage are arguing. They are not just saying that traditional marriage alone is unconstitutional, but that it's also unjust. Now, for a moment, let's suppose they're right. This would mean that including same-sex marriage as legitimate marriage would not only be constitutional, but also just. It would be the right thing to do. So that would mean the proponents of same-sex marriage would hold the moral high ground in this debate. This creates a very odd outcome. It would mean that if same-sex marriage is adopted as law, then the morality recognized by the state would be superior to Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and any other religion that censures homosexual behavior and upholds traditional marriage. Maybe you're comfortable with the state assuming such a lofty position as the moral authority over religion, but think of the consequences. There are three right responses to what is illegal and immoral: criminal punishment, imprisonment; civil punishment, lawsuits; and education. If the state positions itself as holding a higher moral authority than any religion with respect to same-sex marriage, then society will become increasingly hostile to religion, and the state will bring all its resources to bear to ensure that same-sex marriage is honored and businesses and institutions comply and conform. Anti-discrimination lawsuits will proliferate against business owners whose religious consciences do not allow them to grant spousal benefits to homosexuals. Government fines and penalties will result. Accredited religious colleges and universities will be denied federal funding, perhaps even accreditation, and students attending those institutions will not be given grants. Faith-based nonprofits will find that federal grant money is harder to get. Public schools will indoctrinate children on the moral equivalency of same-sex marriage, and teachers with a religious conscience will have to teach the value of same-sex marriage or face termination. The First Amendment prohibits government from interfering with the free exercise of religion in public life. But that freedom will erode once the state adopts same-sex marriage as law and sees religion as its moral inferior.